The stars above are an ancient storybook waiting to be read. Long before telescopes, our ancestors gazed up and saw more than just points of light. They saw epic dramas of gods and monsters, heroic quests, and cosmic animals, all mapped across the darkness. This video will reveal how these myths were a brilliant code, a sophisticated system for understanding the universe. You will learn to see the night sky as they did, uncovering the hidden astronomical wisdom embedded in legendary tales from cultures across the globe. Why did civilizations separated by oceans see similar shapes in the same stars? And what secret messages did they encode in stone monuments aligned with the sun? By the end, you will never look at the constellations the same way again. What story written in the stars has always captured your imagination? The night sky was humanity's first great library. For countless generations, our ancestors did more than simply glance upwards. They studied. They watched the slow, majestic dance of the heavens, a performance repeated night after night, season after season. Early humans, from the desert nomads tracking shifting dunes to the Polynesian voyagers navigating endless ocean, relied on this celestial map for survival. The stars told them when to plant crops and when to harvest. They revealed the paths across trackless seas and featureless deserts. This was not just science. It was a deep, spiritual relationship with the cosmos. To make sense of these powerful forces, our ancestors did what humans do best. They told stories. They looked at the brilliant, wandering planet we call Venus and saw a capricious god, sometimes a beacon of love in the morning, other times a harbinger of war in the evening. They watched the sun vanish each night, believing it to be swallowed by a great beast, only to be reborn triumphantly with each new dawn. This act of personification, of turning planets and star clusters into gods, animals, and heroes, was the birth of mythology. But why did cultures across the globe, completely isolated from one another, so often see similar shapes and craft similar narratives? A bear in the northern sky, a great serpent coiling through the Milky Way. The answer lies in a shared human impulse. Faced with the immense, often terrifying unknown of the universe, we instinctively seek order and meaning. We project our own worldviews, our fears, and our hopes onto the canvas of the night. By recognizing this primordial connection, we can finally see these ancient myths for what they truly were, not simple fables, but sophisticated cosmological models. They were humanity's first attempt to build a working map of reality itself, and to build that map, they needed to create the very first tools for measuring the cosmos. That great cosmic map needed a primary highway, and ancient astronomers found it in the path of the sun. This is the ecliptic, a brilliant band across the sky that the sun appears to travel throughout the year. Along this celestial road, they mapped a sequence of 12 powerful figures, a rotating cast of gods, animals, and heroes we now call the Zodiac. This was not merely a decorative belt of stars. It was humanity's first grand narrative calendar, a storybook whose chapters turned with the seasons. Each zodiac sign, from the charging ram of Aries to the twin fish of Pisces, carries a deep mythological history that directly mirrors the sun's journey. Look at the autumn sky, for instance, and you can still see the epic tale of the hero Perseus frozen in starlight. He eternally saves the Princess Andromeda from the jaws of Cetus, the monstrous sea creature, a dramatic story playing out month after month. But why place these specific figures here? The choices were profoundly practical. These stellar stories were hardwired to the rhythms of life on Earth. In ancient Mesopotamia, the dawn rising of the constellation Taurus the bull signaled the time to plow the fields and plant the vital spring seeds. Later in the year, when the scorpions sting, the stars of Scorpio climbed high in the night, it was a universal signal that the harvest was due. The brilliant astronomers of Babylon meticulously observed these cycles over centuries, refining this 12-fold division into a precise system. They passed this knowledge to the Greeks and Romans, who overlaid it with their own rich pantheon of gods, transforming the Babylonian farmhand into the Greek hero Hercules. This fusion of myth and measurement created a celestial almanac that was both scientifically useful and deeply memorable. By wrapping the complex mechanics of planetary motion and seasonal shift in the compelling cloak of story, they ensured this knowledge would be passed down for generations. The Zodiac stands as a testament to this genius, a system of timekeeping that used the drama of the heavens to mark the time for planting and harvest on the ground. And as our ancestors mastered this solar neighborhood, their curiosity naturally reached for the stars beyond. While the Zodiac marked the sun's annual journey, another celestial code offered something even more vital, a fixed point of certainty in a spinning sky. For every culture in the northern half of our world, the North Star, Polaris, has served as this eternal anchor. It is the one star that does not appear to move, a brilliant pivot around which the entire cosmos slowly turns each night. This unwavering nature did not go unnoticed. It demanded an explanation, and our ancestors answered with some of their most profound polar myths. The ancient Egyptians looked at the stars circling the pole, the ones that never dipped below the horizon, and saw something magical. They declared this the imperishable realm, the home of gods who, unlike mortal beings, would never die or disappear. Many Native American tribes envisioned the North Star as a great nail, driven deep into the vault of the sky, pinning the heavens firmly in place and preventing the constellations from falling to earth. And then there is the beautiful Greek tragedy of the nymph Callisto, transformed into the Great Bear by a jealous goddess and condemned to forever circle the pole, her eternal rotation a poetic reflection of the astronomical reality playing out overhead. But these stories were far more than just charming fables. They were the mental maps and user manuals for ancient explorers. By creating a memorable narrative around that fixed point in the sky, they encoded a crucial piece of navigational data. Phoenician sailors, venturing far into the open Mediterranean under cover of darkness, would have known the myth of the Great Bear. That story instantly identified the constellation that always points to the north, allowing them to chart a straight course when no land was in sight. Likewise, merchants traveling the vast, featureless stretches of the Silk Road could look up at that same celestial nail and know their direction, their very survival hinging on a myth about a star that does not move. In a world of constant change, of shifting seasons and unpredictable fortunes, the pole star represented an ultimate truth, a constant that could always be relied upon. This human yearning for a fixed point, for something permanent in the cosmos, naturally drew their gaze from the steady stars to the far more restless and mysterious wanderers moving among them, the planets. These wanderers broke the rules of the sky, while the vast majority of stars held their fixed positions, rotating in perfect, predictable harmony. A handful of brilliant points of light had minds of their own. They drifted backwards, looped in strange patterns, and changed in brightness, moving against the steady backdrop of the constellations. To our ancestors, this unpredictable behavior marked them as something special, something divine. They were the planets, and their complex dance demanded an explanation written in the language of gods. Each of these wandering stars was assigned a powerful personality that mirrored its celestial character. Take Mercury, for instance. The planet is swift and elusive, never appearing too far from the glare of the sun, visible only in the fleeting moments of dawn or dusk. Who better to represent it than the Roman god Mercury, the nimble messenger of the gods, a deity who could move between worlds in the blink of an eye? Then there is Mars, glowing with a distinct, ominous red hue in the darkness. That bloody color was an unmistakable omen, a celestial signal that perfectly matched its namesake, the fierce and volatile god of war. Personalities of the other planetary gods were just as carefully chosen. Jupiter, the largest and brightest of these wanderers, was naturally given to the king of the gods, a figure of immense authority and power. The radiant beauty of Venus, the brightest object in the sky after the sun and moon, made it the only possible choice for the goddess of love and beauty. And slow, distant Saturn, taking nearly 30 years to complete its long journey around the Zodiac, was seen as an old, melancholy king, a symbol of time, limitation, and the past. This was not just poetic naming. It was a sophisticated system of classification. The ancient Babylonians, some of the most meticulous observers of the heavens, spent centuries recording every loop and retrograde motion of these planets. They did not see random chaos. They interpreted these movements as direct messages from the gods, omens that could foretell the fate of a harvest, the outcome of a battle, or the rise and fall of an empire. A king would delay a coronation if Jupiter was in an unfavorable position. A military campaign might be launched only when Mars was ascendant and bright. The entire drama of human history was thought to be reflected in the celestial dance above. By wrapping the complex, intimidating science of planetary motion in the compelling stories of divine squabbles and moods, they created a framework for understanding. The myth of Venus emerging from the sea foam was a story that helped explain the planet's dazzling appearance in the sky. The tale of Saturn devouring his own children was a dark allegory for the way time consumes all things. This narrative approach transformed the terrifying unpredictability of the cosmos into a manageable and even predictable divine play. It was through this lens of story that they first began to detect the grand, rhythmic patterns governing the solar system, patterns that would eventually point them toward the most profound cycles of all. But even the predictable dance of the planets could be violently interrupted. Without warning, the sun could vanish in the middle of the day, plunging the world into an eerie, premature twilight. The full moon could turn a deep, bloody red or disappear entirely from the sky. These cosmic cataclysms, the eclipses, and the sudden, streaking visit of comets were profound violations of the celestial order. They were moments of pure, primal terror, and every culture wove them into their most dramatic myths of chaos and divine judgment. For the Vikings, the terrifying darkness of a solar eclipse was not a random event. It was the work of two monstrous wolves, Skal and Hati, who were forever chasing the sun and moon across the sky. On those rare, frightening occasions when one of the beasts finally caught its prey, it would swallow it, casting the world into shadow until the light could somehow escape. On the other side of the world, ancient Chinese astronomers saw the same phenomenon and described it with a different but equally vivid creature. They believed a celestial dragon was attacking the sun, and the emperor's court astronomers had a sacred duty to intervene. They would erupt into a cacophony of noise, banging drums and shouting at the sky to scare the dragon away and restore order to the heavens. These were not mere superstitions. They were sophisticated attempts to explain and, crucially, to influence events that were beyond human control. The rituals performed by priests and shamans during an eclipse were a form of cosmic emergency protocol. By acting out the drama of rescuing the sun from the jaws of a beast, they were participating in the salvation of the world itself, reaffirming their role in maintaining the balance of the universe. Comets were perhaps even more unsettling. Unlike an eclipse which could be predicted by skilled astronomers, a comet arrived without any warning, a ghostly stranger with a fiery tail slashing across the established constellations. Its sudden appearance was almost universally seen as a direct omen, a message of impending doom or radical change. The appearance of Halley's Comet in the year 66, for instance, was recorded by the Jewish historian Josephus and linked to the devastating Roman siege and fall of Jerusalem. Centuries later, that same comet blazed in the sky in 1066, just as William the Conqueror invaded England. It was immediately woven into the story of his victory, immortalized in the Bayeux Tapestry as a divine sign blessing the new king. These stories reveal a fundamental human impulse. When faced with the unexplainable and the terrifying, we instinctively search for patterns and meaning. By framing a comet as a herald and an eclipse as a battle between light and darkness, our ancestors transformed random astronomical events into narratives they could understand. They gave themselves a role to play, a way to feel they could appease the gods and restore harmony. This deep-seated need to find order in the cosmos did not stop with transient omens. It eventually led them to uncover the grandest, most majestic cycles of all, encoded in the very stones of their most sacred temples. This grand wobble of our world is the key to decoding the deepest mysteries of time. Picture Earth not as a perfect, steady sphere, but as a spinning top slowly tracing a vast circle in the cosmic dark. This motion, called the Procession of the Equinoxes, takes 26,000 years to complete just a single cycle. It is so slow that the stars shift by just 1 degree in the sky over the course of a human lifetime, a change completely invisible to the naked eye. Yet, against all odds, our ancestors not only detected this drift, they built their most profound myths of world ages around it. The ancient Greeks spoke of a great year, a cosmic cycle that saw humanity fall from a golden age into the harsh Iron Age of today. Hindu scriptures describe the yugas, immense cycles of time where the world moves from perfection into decay and back again. These were not just stories about human morality. They were allegories for the heavens themselves. As Earth's axis slowly wobbles, the constellation that appears behind the sun at the spring equinox gradually changes, moving backwards through the zodiac over those 26,000 years. We are currently in the age of Pisces, and soon, astronomically speaking, we will enter the age of Aquarius. But look back. Around the time when many major religions were forming, the equinox sun was moving from the constellation of Taurus the bull into Aries the ram. This celestial transition is etched into our oldest stories. In ancient Egypt, the worship of the bull god Apis gives way to the ram-headed deity Ammon. In the Hebrew Old Testament, the prophet Moses shatters the golden calf, a symbol of Taurus, and his people then follow a ram's horn, the shofar. These were not coincidences. They were cultural markers reflecting a profound shift in the cosmic backdrop. This knowledge of vast time was not confined to the Mediterranean. The Maya of Mesoamerica were arguably the greatest astronomers of the ancient world. They calculated cycles of time so immense they stretch modern comprehension. Their long-count calendar tracked periods that may align with the precessional cycle, viewing time not as a straight line but as a series of repeating cosmic seasons. They understood that the universe operated on a timescale far beyond human generations, and they encoded this understanding into their mythology and their mathematics. To grasp a cycle that takes 26,000 years to complete requires observations passed down over hundreds of generations, a continuous, unbroken chain of sky watchers meticulously recording the slow dance of the stars. This achievement is staggering. It means that these myths of world ages were not primitive superstitions. They were the conclusion of millennia of data collection, a sophisticated model of cosmic time written in the language of gods and heroes. And this celestial knowledge did not just live in stories. It was set in stone, carved into the very landscape on a scale meant to last for the ages themselves. The stones themselves remember the solstice. In the green fields of southern England, the great circle of Stonehenge stands as a colossal machine built not of gears but of granite and purpose. Its builders, over thousands of years, arranged these multi-ton blocks with a precision that seems to defy their era. The heart of this design, its primary axis, is locked onto the precise point on the horizon where the sun rises on the summer solstice. On that one morning, the longest day of the year, the first rays of the sun would have streamed through the monument's entrance, slicing a path of light directly into its center. The heel stone, a solitary sentinel placed outside the main circle, acts as a perfect backstop for this celestial event, framing the rising sun in a spectacle of raw cosmic power. This was far more than a simple calendar. For a society whose survival was tied to the seasons, the solstice sunrise was a moment of profound spiritual significance. It represented the sun god at the peak of its strength, a promise of abundant harvests and the eternal victory of light over the creeping darkness of winter. The rituals performed here, likely by a powerful priestly class, would have reinforced this sacred contract between the people and the heavens. But the sun was not the only player in this stone symphony. As the monument evolved through different construction phases, its architects incorporated alignments to the moon's more complex 18.6-year cycle. Certain stones and the mysterious Aubrey holes that dot the circle are positioned to mark the lunar standstills, the extreme points on the horizon where the moon rises and sets. This dual tracking of both sun and moon reveals a sophisticated understanding of celestial patterns that unfold over a human lifetime. The myths born here are lost to time, but the structure itself is a frozen narrative. It tells of a people who saw the sky not as a distant void, but as a living, breathing entity, whose rhythms were so vital they needed to be carved into the very flesh of the earth. This immense labor, hauling stones from distant Wales, was an act of devotion and a declaration. They were building a permanent conduit to the divine, a place where earth and sky could speak to one another. And this profound impulse to build heaven on earth was not unique to the misty British Isles. The same yearning drove another civilization under a harsher sun to construct a temple so perfectly aligned it feels less like a building and more like a star chart rendered in sandstone. Far to the south, under the searing Egyptian sun, another river of stars guided the hands of architects. The three great pyramids of Giza are arranged with a breathtaking geometric precision that seems to defy the very passage of millennia. Their layout on the sand is not random. It mirrors with an almost uncanny accuracy the three bright stars that form the belt of the constellation Orion. This is the core of the Orion correlation theory, a compelling idea that links the world's most famous monuments directly to the heavens. In the Egyptian cosmic view, Orion was no mere hunter. It was Sa, the celestial manifestation of Osiris, the god of the afterlife, resurrection, and regenerative power. The shimmering band of the Milky Way arching overhead was not just a cloud of light. It was the celestial counterpart to the life-giving Nile, a river of souls flowing through the dark field of the night. This creates a stunning symbolic map. The pyramids on the ground become a perfect reflection of Osiris stars in the sky, while the Nile River mirrors the Milky Way. The architecture was designed as a colossal machine for resurrection. Narrow, perfectly aligned shafts built deep within the Great Pyramid point directly toward the stars of Orion's belt. Their purpose was not for ventilation, but for transit. They were celestial conduits, designed to channel the pharaoh's soul straight from his burial chamber to its eternal home among the imperishable stars. The pyramid texts, the oldest known religious writings in the world, are filled with spells to aid this very journey. They are literal navigation manuals for the afterlife, providing the deceased king with the words and star maps he needs to join Osiris. He would not wander lost in the darkness. He would sail the celestial Nile, recognized by the gods, and take his place in the eternal, cyclical drama of death and rebirth played out in the stars. Not every scholar accepts the correlation as a deliberate architectural plan, pointing to slight discrepancies in the alignment or alternative explanations. Yet, even if the match is not photorealistic, the underlying principle is undeniable. The Egyptians were building more than tombs. They were constructing a permanent gateway, a duplicate on Earth of the Duat, the starlit realm of the dead. They sought to anchor the cosmic power of resurrection into the very limestone and granite of the plateau, ensuring their king's divinity for all time. This profound desire to mirror the heavens in stone reveals a universal human truth. From the solstice-aligned circles of Europe to the star-pointing pyramids of the desert, ancient humanity was engaged in a single grand project. They were weaving the sky and the earth into one continuous, sacred landscape, ensuring the order above was forever reflected in the world below. The sprawling temple complex of Karnak was a machine for making sunrise. Its main axis, stretching over a quarter-mile, was not aligned by chance. It was meticulously oriented to capture the first rays of the midwinter sun, the moment of the sun god's weakest yet most hopeful rebirth. As the golden light of the winter solstice dawn flooded down this sacred corridor, it illuminated the innermost sanctuary, the Holy of Holies. This was not just a room. It was the destination, the final birth for the sacred bark. This golden vessel was not a mere statue. It was the earthly home of the god Amun-Ra himself, and the entire temple was a map of his perilous nightly journey. He would travel through the dark underworld aboard his bark, fighting chaos to be reborn with the dawn. The temple's architecture was his celestial roadmap, guiding his journey and ensuring his victorious return. Step inside the hypostyle hall, and you are transported to the very beginning of time. 134 massive columns rise like a petrified forest, their capitals shaped like budding papyrus and lotus plants. This was not just an impressive entrance, it was a recreation of the primordial marsh, the mound of creation that emerged from the cosmic waters at the dawn of the world. This was the place where the sun god first appeared, according to Egyptian myth. Walking through this stone thicket was a symbolic journey back to that first moment of creation, an experience available to the priests every single day. The entire temple complex was a scale model of the universe, with each successive courtyard and pylon representing a different stage in the cosmic order. This cosmic map was not a static display. It came to roaring life during the Opet festival, once a year in a spectacle of music, incense, and fervent celebration. The priests would carefully lift the sacred bark carrying Amun-Ra from his shrine at Karnak. They would carry the god in a grand, joyful procession along the avenue of sphinxes connecting Karnak to the Luxor temple, a journey of nearly 2 miles. This was not merely a parade, it was a ritual reenactment of the god's mythical journey, a divine circuit that renewed the power of the pharaoh and, by extension, the entire kingdom of Egypt. The festival was the engine of cosmic maintenance, a way of plugging the human world back into the divine source, ensuring the Nile would flood, the harvests would be abundant, and Mot, the fundamental order of the universe, would be preserved for another year. Karnak demonstrates that for the ancients, myth was not something you simply read. It was something you built, something you walked through, and something you performed. This profound tradition of encoding the cosmos into sacred geography was not confined to the banks of the Nile. Across the ocean, another civilization was building its own breathtaking response to the heavens, carving a sprawling celestial calendar into the very peaks of the Andes Mountains. High in the jungle canopy, the ancient Maya envisioned a great tree holding up the sky. This was the Waka-chan, the world tree, a cosmic axis connecting all layers of existence. Its roots plunged deep into the watery underworld of Xibalba, a place of fear and trial. Its massive trunk stood firmly in the middle world of the earth, and its branches soared upward, supporting the 13-layered heavens where the gods resided. This was not just a spiritual idea, it was a precise cosmological model, a map of reality that the Maya saw reflected in the very architecture of the night sky. The shimmering band of the Milky Way, arching directly overhead in the dark tropical night, was this very world tree made manifest in starlight. At certain times of the year, the dark rift within the Milky Way, which looks like a road of cosmic dust, was seen as the trunk of this celestial tree, a pathway for souls and gods to travel between the realms. This profound connection between myth and astronomy was the foundation of their entire civilization, a civilization obsessed with the measurement of time itself. Their calendars were not just for counting days, they were intricate mechanisms for synchronizing human life with the grand, cyclical rhythms of the cosmos. The most famous of these, the long count calendar, tracked vast epochs stretching over thousands of years. It was a system built on the movements of the planets, with Venus holding a particularly fearsome power. The Maya calculated Venus' 584-day cycle with an accuracy that startles modern astronomers. They saw its appearances and disappearances as the comings and goings of the god Kukulkan, the feathered serpent, a deity of both creation and destruction. When Venus rose as the morning star, it was a time of war and ill omen. Kings would schedule their battles to coincide with its bright, baleful light in the dawn sky, believing the serpent god was lending them his power. This celestial knowledge was not locked away in secret texts. It was made public, carved in stone for all to witness at the Great Pyramid of Chichen Itza, known as El Castillo. This pyramid is a colossal, functioning calendar. Its 4 stairways each have 91 steps, which, added to the shared platform at the top, equals 365 the solar year. But its most breathtaking function occurs during the spring and autumn equinoxes. As the sun sets on those 2 days, the stepped corners of the pyramid cast a series of triangular shadows down the northern staircase. These shadows connect with giant stone serpent heads at the base, creating the stunning, undulating illusion of a massive snake slithering down from the heavens to the earth. It is the feathered serpent god Kukulkan descending in a spectacle of light and shadow, a direct communication from the cosmos to the people. The pyramid itself becomes the world tree, the axis where the divine touches the mortal plane. The entire structure is a perfect fusion of astronomy, architecture, and mythology, a 3-dimensional proof of their belief that time itself was a sacred, living force. Their surviving codices, the bark paper books that escaped the Spanish burnings, are filled with these calculations. They are tables predicting eclipses, charts of planetary movements, and almanacs linking celestial events to the cycles of agriculture and human fate. For the Maya, the universe was a dynamic, breathing entity, and their myths encoded its pulse. They did not see a static sky, but a great turning wheel of time, where gods danced, serpents descended, and the world tree stood eternally at the center, connecting everything. This deep, cyclical understanding of cosmic order, written in both stone and story, reveals a mind that sought harmony with the heavens. And as we follow this thread of celestial mapping across the globe, we find another culture that took this harmony to its ultimate practical expression, not in towering temples, but in the art of navigating the world's largest ocean. The vast Pacific Ocean was not a barrier, but a highway of stars. For the Polynesian voyagers, the sky was a living, breathing compass, its knowledge passed down not in books, but in the rhythms of chants and the feel of the ocean swell. They traversed thousands of miles of open water in double-hulled canoes, guided by a system of celestial navigation, so refined it feels almost like magic. At its heart was the star compass, a mental map dividing the horizon into 32 houses. Each house was not a single point, but a directional sector named for the bright star that rose or set there. A navigator would memorize the entire sequence, knowing that as one guiding star dipped below the waves, another would be rising in its appointed place, creating a continuous, rolling path of light across the dark water. This was a dynamic map, changing with the seasons, requiring a mind that could hold the entire cosmos in constant rotation. These star paths were the immutable guides, but the navigator's art involved reading the living ocean itself. They watched for the specific birds that flew out to sea to fish at dawn and returned to land at dusk, their flight lines revealing unseen islands beyond the horizon. They learned to read the subtle patterns of ocean swells, feeling how they reflected and bent around distant landmasses, a language of the sea transmitted up through the canoe's hull into the navigator's very bones. This profound knowledge was encoded and preserved in their most sacred stories. The great Hawaiian creation chant, the Cumulipo, is a genealogy of the universe. It begins in the deep, dark Po, the night of creation, and unfolds over 2,000 lines, listing the emergence of life in a precise order, from the simplest sea creatures to the gods and finally to the chiefly lineages. This was far more than a poem. It was a cosmological model, a verbal map of the natural and celestial world, where the birth of a specific plant or animal in the chant corresponded to the rising of a specific star or constellation. To recite the Cumulipo was to reaffirm the fundamental order of the cosmos, linking human ancestry directly to the stars. Then there are the thrilling adventures of the trickster demigod Maui. The story of Maui fishing up the islands from the ocean floor is a dramatic allegory for volcanic island formation and discovery. His legendary feat of snaring the sun with a magical net, forcing it to slow its journey across the sky to lengthen the days, is a myth that contains a sharp, practical observation. It speaks to the understanding of the sun's changing path between the solstices, a crucial piece of knowledge for any long-distance voyage. These myths were the textbooks of the Pacific, packed with vital data about currents, seasons, and stellar landmarks. This living tradition of wayfinding, recently revived after nearly being lost, shows us that the ultimate expression of celestial myth was not just to observe the map, but to sail across it. The Polynesians physically traversed the star paths of their ancestors, turning legend into lived reality. This deep, embodied connection between story and survival invites us to look further, to the ancient mythological systems of the Far East, where celestial order was woven into the very fabric of philosophy and imperial power. The Chinese imperial court had a perfect, shimmering duplicate in the night sky. For the ancient Chinese astronomers, the cosmos was not a wild realm of battling gods but a vast, orderly bureaucracy, a celestial mirror of their own empire. At the very center of this divine administration sat the North Star, the unmoving celestial emperor, surrounded by his court of star officials. The purple forbidden enclosure, a region of circumpolar stars, was his imperial palace, and the constellations arrayed around it represented his ministers, generals, and concubines, each with a defined rank and duty. This was not mere poetry. It was a precise cosmological model that directly fueled the most powerful political idea in Chinese history, the mandate of heaven. An emperor ruled only so long as he maintained perfect harmony with this celestial order. His virtue, order, was the energy that kept the cosmos in balance. Any disruption in the sky was therefore a direct critique of his leadership. A comet, which they called a broom star, was seen as heaven sweeping away a corrupt dynasty. A sudden eclipse was a terrifying omen that the emperor had lost the favor of the gods, a portent of rebellion, famine, or collapse. Court astronomers held a position of immense power, meticulously recording every planetary conjunction and unexpected guest star in annals that doubled as a celestial report card for the emperor. Their duty was to read the sky for signs of disharmony, allowing the court to perform rituals to correct its course and reaffirm the imperial mandate. Yet within this rigid celestial hierarchy, the Chinese also wove one of the world's most tender love stories. Look up in late summer and you can see them separated by the silvery river of the Milky Way. On one side is the brilliant star Vega, the Weaver Girl, a celestial princess who wove exquisite silks for the heavens. On the other is Altair, the cowherd, a simple, humble man. They fell deeply in love, but their romance angered the Weaver Girl's mother, the celestial empress, who slashed the Milky Way with her hairpin to keep them forever apart. Their grief moved her, however, and she decreed that on the 7th night of the 7th lunar month, a bridge of magpies would form across the heavenly river, allowing the lovers a single, precious night together. This myth is the heart of the Kixi Festival, a day of romance still celebrated across East Asia. It is a beautiful human drama, but it is also a story deeply grounded in the seasons. The stars of Vega and Altair are most prominent in the late summer sky, and the date of their mythical meeting coincides with the end of the hot, humid season and the beginning of autumn, a natural turning point in the agricultural year. This seamless fusion of human emotion, seasonal change, and stellar observation reveals a culture that saw the cosmos as a single, interconnected system, where politics, poetry, and the motions of the planets were all part of one grand governing pattern. This view of the heavens as a vast, administrative entity stands in stark contrast to the personal struggles of Greek gods or the heroic quests of the northern constellations. It prompts us to look further, to another civilization that developed an equally intricate and profound celestial science, one where the cosmos was not a bureaucracy, but a cosmic dance of creation and destruction played out over immense cycles of time. That same profound sense of cosmic order found a breathtakingly complex expression in ancient India. Hindu seers looked at the moon's path and divided it into 27 precise sectors, the nakshatras. These were not just star clusters, they were considered lunar mansions, each one a celestial neighborhood with its own ruling deity, a symbolic animal or object, and a rich, guiding story. This system became the very backbone of Vedic timekeeping and astrology, a way of linking every moment on Earth to a specific, narrative-driven energy in the heavens. The moon's journey through these 27 mansions over its monthly cycle was seen as a story unfolding, with each nakshatra imparting its own unique flavor to the days and to human lives. For instance, the nakshatra known as Rohini, presided over by the creator god Brahma, is symbolized by a chariot and is associated with growth and fertility, a direct link to its mythological roots. This intricate mapping was part of a grander vision, one that saw the entire sky as a stage for epic divine drama. The most spectacular of these celestial plays is the myth of the churning of the ocean of milk. In this story, the gods and demons, eternal rivals, temporarily set aside their conflict. They used the serpent king Vasuki as a rope, wrapped him around the cosmic mountain Mandara, and began to churn the primordial ocean. The Milky Way itself was seen as this vast celestial ocean. The mountain was the world axis, and the serpent, represented by the ecliptic, was the churning rope. As they pulled back and forth, the ocean yielded both wonders and horrors, from the deadly poison that threatened all creation to the final prize, the Amrita, the nectar of immortality. Every element in this story has a direct astronomical counterpart. The god Vishnu, who takes the form of a giant tortoise to support the churning mountain at the bottom of the sea, is linked to the constellation we know as Orion. The serpent Vasuki coils along the path of the sun and planets. The final emergence of the Amrita is tied to specific lunar phases within the nakshatra system. This myth is a powerful allegory for the procession of the equinoxes, the slow, cosmic tug of war between opposing forces that drives the great cycle of the ages. This leads to the most staggering concept of all, the Hindu cosmology of cyclical time. The Puranic texts describe a universe that breathes. It expands for a day of Brahma, a period of over 4 billion human years, and then contracts back into its source for a night of equal length. This cycle of creation and dissolution repeats for the entire lifespan of Brahma, which is over 300 trillion years, after which a new Brahma is born and the process begins anew. What is truly humbling is the scale of this vision. It encodes a concept of deep time that rivals our modern cosmological models, all framed within a narrative of divine inhalation and exhalation. These were not wild guesses. They were the philosophical fruits of millennia of observation, a way of using the grandest possible stories to make the vast, impersonal rhythms of the cosmos comprehensible and meaningful. This idea of a living, breathing universe invites a final, sweeping question, one that connects every culture we have explored. A great ash tree holds all of creation in its branches. This is Yggdrasil, the axis of the Norse cosmos, a universe built not on peaceful order but on a foundation of relentless struggle and elemental power. Its highest bough cradles Asgard, the shimmering fortress of the gods, connected to the human world of Midgard by the trembling bridge of the rainbow, Bifrost. Deep below, not one but 3 massive roots drink from separate wells, anchoring the tree in the realms of the frost giants, the misty land of the dead, and the spring of all wisdom itself. This was not a flat earth under a dome of stars, but a vertical, living map, a world tree perpetually under siege by dragons and stags, yet sustaining all life. The Norse saw their celestial reality reflected in this mythic geography. The shimmering, ghostly curtains of the aurora borealis were not just pretty lights. They were the Bifrost Bridge itself, or sometimes the radiant glow flashing from the shields and armor of the Valkyries as they chose the slain for Odin's hall. The hazy band of the Milky Way arching across the winter sky was known as the Winter Street, a frozen path for the gods to travel. Even the constellations played their part. Some scholars suggest the star pattern we call Orion was seen as the god Thor's belt, or perhaps as a homage to the All-Father himself. This entire cosmic system was organized into the 9 realms, each a distinct world with its own nature and inhabitants, all connected by the roots and branches of the great tree. There was Alfheim, the world of the light elves, brilliant and fair, and Svartalfheim, the cavernous home of the dwarves, master smiths who forged the gods' greatest treasures. There was fiery Muspelheim, the realm of the fire giants, and its opposite, the frozen, primordial mist of Niflheim, a land of ice and the dead who did not die in battle. This cosmology was a grand, intricate machine, but it was a machine destined to break. The Norse understood that even the cosmos itself was mortal. This belief culminates in Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods, a prophesied end times woven from both myth and celestial observation. The final battle would be preceded by Fimbulwinter, 3 years of endless snow with no summer in between, a terrifying concept for a people living in the far north. The stars themselves would grow unstable, shaking loose from the sky and plunging into darkness. The sun and moon would be hunted and swallowed by monstrous wolves, echoing the real terror of solar and lunar eclipses. The great serpent Jormungandr, who lies coiled in the ocean surrounding Midgard, would rise from the depths, poisoning the land and sea. The fire giants would march across the Bifrost, shattering it as they came, and the gods would fall in final, heroic combat against their ancient enemies. Ragnarok is not merely an apocalypse, it is a cosmic reset. After the conflagration, the earth, scorched and purified, will rise again from the water, green and fertile. A new generation of gods will emerge, and 2 human survivors will repopulate the world. This myth of total destruction followed by rebirth provided a narrative for the most violent and unexplainable celestial events, from the long darkness of the polar winter to the sudden, frightening appearance of a great comet streaking across the heavens. It presented a universe where conflict was inherent, where even the gods had to fight for their existence, and where the ultimate order was not permanence, but cyclical renewal through chaos. This dynamic, dramatic vision stands in stark contrast to the serene bureaucracy of the Chinese sky, yet both systems served the same profound human need: to build a mental model that could contain the vast, often terrifying spectacle of the universe. This universal drive to map the heavens would find one of its most enduring expressions in the stargazing traditions of the classical world, where myth and mathematics began their fateful merger. The Greek imagination gave the northern sky its permanent cast of characters. While earlier cultures saw animals and gods, the Greek astronomers transformed the celestial sphere into a single, coherent stage for their most dramatic myths. Nearly every constellation we recognize today carries the name and story of a Greek hero, monster, or god, a legacy largely codified by the mathematician Eudoxus and the poet Aratus. Their work systematized the cosmos, turning a scattered collection of star patterns into a formal pantheon of light. This was not random naming. The myths they attached to the stars often served as direct explanations for the sky's appearance and behavior. Why does the Great Bear, Ursa Major, never dip below the horizon? The Greeks told a tragic story of the nymph Callisto, transformed into a bear by a jealous goddess and placed in the sky to circle the pole forever, an eternal exile that perfectly accounts for its ceaseless circumpolar motion. Her son, Arcas, became the smaller bear, Ursa Minor, forever trailing his mother through the night. The sprawling epic of Perseus and Andromeda is another perfect example. Look at the autumn sky and you can trace the entire narrative. The hero Perseus, holding the head of the Gorgon Medusa, eternally saves the chained princess Andromeda from the gaping jaws of Cetus, the sea monster. Cassiopeia, the vain queen who caused the trouble, is pinned to her throne, revolving around the pole in a perpetual state of humiliation. These stories gave meaning to the relative positions of the stars, locking them into a fixed, memorable relationship. This celestial storytelling was a brilliant pedagogical tool. By wrapping the dry, technical data of stellar positions within thrilling narratives of love, betrayal, and heroism, the Greeks ensured this astronomical knowledge would be remembered and passed down through generations. A student learning the sky did not just memorize a dot-to-dot picture of a bear. He learned the saga of Callisto, and in doing so, he could always find the 7 bright stars of the Big Dipper, part of that larger bear, and from there navigate to other constellations. The Almagest Ptolemy's monumental work would later enshrine this Greek celestial catalogue, preserving 48 constellations with mathematical precision. This systematic fusion of myth and science represents a pinnacle of ancient star mapping, a legacy of ordered heavens that would be faithfully preserved and meticulously expanded by the scholars of the Islamic Golden Age. Rome took the Greek sky and stamped it with the eagle of the legions. They absorbed the entire celestial pantheon but gave the gods new Latin names, transforming Zeus into Jupiter, Ares into Mars, and Aphrodite into Venus. This was far more than a simple translation. It was a deliberate act of cultural and political engineering, weaving the cosmos directly into the fabric of the Roman state. The planet Venus, for instance, was no longer just a beautiful goddess of love. She was reframed as Venus Genetrix, the divine mother and ancestor of the Julian family, the bloodline of Julius Caesar. This celestial connection provided a divine mandate for his rule, suggesting his power was written in the stars themselves. That political use of the heavens reached its apex with the first emperor, Augustus. After the assassination of his adoptive father, Julius Caesar, a brilliant comet appeared in the sky for 7 days. While many saw it as a simple celestial event, Augustus declared it was nothing less than the soul of Caesar ascending to take his place among the immortal gods. This comet, the Sidus Iulium, was minted onto coins and proclaimed as a new star heralding the dawn of a new, divine age under Augustus. The sky itself was now endorsing the imperial dynasty. Alongside this political spectacle, there was a profound need for practical order. The old Roman calendar had fallen into such disarray that the harvest festivals were occurring in the wrong season. Julius Caesar, acting on the astronomical advice of the Alexandrian scholar Sosigenes, introduced a radical solution. He implemented the Julian calendar, a solar-based system that aligned the civil year precisely with the sun's journey along the ecliptic. This was the Greek celestial map put to work on an empire-wide scale, a reform that stabilized time itself for millions of people. And to ensure these celestial stories would never be forgotten, the poet Ovid collected and retold them in his masterpiece, The Metamorphoses. His work became a vast encyclopedia of transformation myths, from Callisto becoming the great bear to the crab crushed by Hercules becoming the constellation Cancer. Ovid's vivid poetry was the vessel that carried this ancient star lore safely through the turbulent collapse of the Roman world and into the Middle Ages. The Roman synthesis shows us that a celestial code is never frozen. It is a living language constantly adapted to serve new rulers, new empires, and new understandings of the world. This flexible transmission through poetry and politics ensured the survival of a cosmic map that would one day be studied with fresh eyes by a new faith rising in the deserts of Arabia. While Europe navigated its so-called Dark Ages, a brilliant light of scholarship burned in the East. The great city of Baghdad became the new center of the celestial sciences, home to the legendary House of Wisdom. Here, a vast project of translation was underway, with scholars rendering the great works of Greek science into Arabic. Ptolemy's Almagest, the very foundation of Western astronomy, was not lost. It was meticulously preserved, its complex math and its 48 constellations saved for posterity. But these scholars were far more than just librarians of ancient knowledge. They were brilliant innovators who refined the Greek models, building more precise observational instruments and developing new mathematical techniques to predict planetary motion. They kept the mythological framework of the Greek sky, the stories of Perseus and Hercules, but they also looked with their own eyes, correcting star positions and adding their own brilliant descriptions. The astronomer Al-Sufi produced his masterpiece, the Book of Fixed Stars. This was not a dry catalogue. It was a glorious fusion of science and myth, presenting each constellation twice, once as seen in the sky and once as seen on a celestial globe, each star accompanied by its Greek mythological story and its new, enduring Arabic name. It is to these scholars that we owe the beautiful, resonant star names we still use today. The fiery Aldebaran, the follower, in the eye of Taurus, the bull. Betelgeuse, the giant's shoulder, in the constellation of Orion. Rigel, the foot of the celestial hunter. These names are a direct legacy of that golden age, a time when the coded map of the heavens was not only saved from oblivion but was actively improved. This work ensured the survival of a complete cosmic system, a fusion of measurement and mythology that would one day travel west, sparking a revolution that would change the world forever. The old sky was being remade, but its ancient stories refused to die. As the Renaissance reawakened Europe, scholars feverishly translated long-lost Greek and Arabic manuscripts, and with them returned the complete celestial map of Ptolemy. The heavens were once again populated by Hercules and Orion, their myths restored to their rightful place in the culture. Yet this revival occurred just as Nicholas Copernicus proposed a shocking new reality, placing the sun, not the earth, at the center of the cosmic dance. Here was a paradox. The very foundation of the universe was being overturned, yet the imaginary figures painted across the night sky held firm. Why did these mythological patterns survive such a radical shift in thought? The answer lies in their power as a universal language. The constellations were a durable, elegant filing system for the stars, a code that every educated person understood. They provided a fixed canvas upon which the new, revolutionary planetary motions could be charted and understood. Artists became the prophets of this reconciled vision. Albrecht Dürer published his breathtaking celestial maps, engraving the classical gods and heroes with meticulous precision. These were not just scientific charts. They were works of art that declared the harmony between human imagination and cosmic order, even as that order was being fundamentally redefined, and the celestial storybook was still being written. Voyagers like Amerigo Vespucci returned from southern waters with reports of stars never seen by Greek or Arab astronomers. A whole new hemisphere of sky awaited its myths. Later astronomers would fill these blank spaces, but not with new gods or heroes. They reached for the only vocabulary they had, populating the southern void with the wonders of the age of exploration. Thus, the celestial menagerie expanded to include Tucana the toucan, Pavo the peacock, and Dorado the swordfish. These were modern figures, yet they served the same ancient purpose, turning unfamiliar stars into recognizable, memorable shapes. The Renaissance sky became a beautiful palimpsest, where the timeless forms of Perseus and Centaurus now shared the dome with a brilliant peacock, all circling a sun that had just taken its place at the center of it all. This resilience proves that the human mind craves narrative. We need stories to anchor our understanding, even of the most abstract truths. The old myths provided a comforting continuity, a familiar face on a universe that was rapidly expanding in every direction. But how long could these ancient patterns last when the lens of the telescope began to reveal the heavens in unimaginable detail? Galileo's lens cracked the crystal spheres. When he first turned his telescope toward Jupiter, he saw 4 small stars that moved night after night, shifting positions around the giant planet. They were not fixed to any celestial sphere. They were moons orbiting another world, a discovery that shattered the ancient model of a perfect Earth-centered universe. Then he observed Venus, and its phases proved it circled the sun, not us. The moon, once a symbol of unblemished perfection, was revealed to be a rugged, cratered landscape. The old cosmology was breaking apart under the weight of empirical evidence. Yet, in the very act of reporting these revolutionary findings, Galileo reached for the old stories. He initially called Jupiter's moons the Medicean stars to flatter his patron, but the names that stuck were not political. They were mythological. We know them today as Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto, all lovers of the god Jupiter in classical legend. Even as science dismantled the physical reality of the mythic cosmos, its language provided the only vocabulary grand enough to label the new discoveries. This created a fascinating synergy between the cold eye of the telescope and the warm breath of story. As astronomers discovered new worlds, they instinctively dug back into the classical treasury for names. When William Herschel identified a new planet beyond Saturn, he initially wanted to name it after his king. But the astronomical community, steeped in tradition, chose Uranus, the primordial Greek god of the sky, father of Saturn and grandfather of Jupiter. Later, the planet discovered through mathematical prediction, not just chance observation, was named Neptune for the Roman god of the sea. This was more than just a naming convention. It was a way of weaving the new solar system back into a familiar human narrative. The pattern continued with the countless small bodies found in the asteroid belt. The first, Ceres, was named for the Roman goddess of agriculture, the second, Pallas, for the goddess of wisdom. Then came Juno and Vesta, continuing the divine family. Each new rock was given a name and a story, ensuring the asteroid belt did not become a mere catalogue of numbers, but a new neighborhood in the old mythological city. The telescope did not erase the ancient star maps. Instead, it revealed that the universe was vaster and more wondrous than the myths had ever described, and in response, we simply expanded the map. We added new characters to the old play, proving that the human need for narrative could scale to meet any discovery. The celestial code, first written by stargazers around campfires, had proven itself infinitely adaptable, ready to name the unknown, no matter how far our vision reached. The final celestial map was officially drawn in 1922, when the International Astronomical Union defined the 88 constellations we use today. This act of cosmic cartography covered the entire sky in a grid of precise, unambiguous boundaries. While the vast majority of these star patterns were inherited from the Greek tradition, the empty spaces between the great heroes and the uncharted southern skies demanded new inhabitants. These were not gods or monsters, but the tools of a new age. The constellation Fornax is not a divine smith, but the chemical furnace itself. Microscopium immortalizes the instrument that revealed a hidden world, and Antlia is a simple air pump. These new figures were children of the Enlightenment, celebrating human reason and scientific discovery over divine drama. This was a profound shift. For the first time, the sky was no longer just a storybook. It was becoming a catalogue, a systematic chart of human knowledge where every star needed an address. Yet, even as the spirit of the age filled the voids with telescopes and sextants, the heart of the celestial sphere remained mythic. The brilliant Orion still dominates the winter sky, his epic story untouchable by bureaucratic decree. The new constellations did not replace the old. They settled into the spaces between them, creating a beautiful, layered tapestry. Our modern sky is a palimpsest, where the ancient drama of Perseus shares the stage with the quiet, functional shape of a furnace. This blending of narrative and catalogue reveals our evolving dialogue with the cosmos, a relationship built first on story, then on system. But this hard-won map, perfected over millennia, now faces a new challenge, one that threatens to erase it not from our charts but from our very sight. That brilliant river of stars our ancestors saw is vanishing before our eyes. For the first time in human history, a majority of people live under skies so washed with artificial light that the Milky Way is no longer visible from their homes. This is not a gentle fading. It is a silent erasure of a fundamental human experience, a shared inheritance that has defined our species for millennia. The celestial map we have been exploring, the very stage for these epic myths, is being switched off. When you can no longer see the Great Bear circling the pole or the serpent coiling through the Milky Way, the stories themselves begin to feel abstract, like tales of a country you can never visit. The myth of the Navajo, who emerged into this world from a previous one through a celestial reed, loses its power if you cannot see those starry patterns. The epic of the Chinese lovers separated by the Milky Way becomes just a pretty story when the heavenly river itself is drowned in an orange glow. This loss is a profound cultural amnesia. We are severing the direct line of sight to our own past, to the narratives that gave order to the cosmos and meaning to our place within it. But a growing movement is fighting back. Across the globe, dark sky preserves are being established, pockets of profound darkness where the night is protected like an endangered species. In places like the deserts of Utah or the remote highlands of Scotland, people can still witness the sky in its full, overwhelming glory. Organizations like the International Dark Sky Association work with cities to implement smarter, shielded lighting that directs light downward where it is needed, rather than spraying it uselessly into the atmosphere. This is not about plunging our cities into darkness, but about reclaiming a balance, about remembering that the night has a value all its own. The urgency to protect these dark skies is matched by the urgency to retell the old stories. Every time we point out Orion in the winter sky or trace the shape of the scorpion, we are not just identifying stars, we are reactivating an ancient code. We are participating in the same act of meaning-making as the Babylonian priest, the Polynesian navigator, and the Egyptian astronomer. In a world increasingly disconnected from natural rhythms, these myths offer a way back. They are the keys to a door that light pollution is trying to lock, a door that leads to wonder, to perspective, and to a deep, humbling sense of our shared journey under the same stars. The map is fading, but it is not yet lost. Our choice now is whether we will be the generation that let it disappear, or the one that fought to keep its stories alive. Archaeoastronomy gives us the scientific toolkit to test these celestial stories against the stones they left behind. This is not about speculation. It is a rigorous, interdisciplinary field that marries the precise calculations of astronomy with the careful excavation of archaeology and the rich context of oral history. Researchers begin by meticulously surveying a site, measuring the alignments of doorways, corridors, and major monuments with the precision of a modern engineer. But the raw data is not enough. They must then run statistical analyses to determine if an alignment to a solstice sunrise or a lunar standstill is a deliberate design or merely a random chance. The final, crucial piece of the puzzle comes from ethnography, the study of living cultures. By listening to the myths and traditions passed down through generations, researchers can understand the why behind the alignment. A shaft of light striking a carved spiral is just a pretty effect, but when that same light dagger, like the one at Fajoda Butte in Choco Canyon, perfectly bisects a spiral on the summer solstice, and local Pueblo traditions speak of the Sun Father marking the sacred center of the world, the coincidence becomes a confirmed celestial calendar. This scientific process has brilliantly confirmed many long-held suspicions. The descending serpent of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza is a perfect example. For years, it was a compelling story. Archaeoastronomers measured the pyramid, calculated the sun's angle, and proved that the shadow play was a precise, repeatable, and intentional feature of the architecture, not a happy accident. Yet this same rigorous methodology has also debunked popular theories. Some proposed alignments at Stonehenge, for instance, once thought to be key to its function, have been shown through statistical analysis to fall within the range of random probability when the entire site is considered. This is the true power of archaeoastronomy. It acts as a bridge between the world of myth and the world of measurable fact, allowing us to separate poetic coincidence from verifiable ancient knowledge. By applying this scientific lens, we do not diminish the wonders of the past. We validate the intellectual triumphs of our ancestors, granting them the profound respect they deserve for building a working model of the cosmos. Their myths were not mere fables, they were theories, and their temples were the laboratories where those theories were tested and proven, season after season for thousands of years. Our minds are hardwired to find meaning in chaos. This innate drive, known as pareidolia, is the reason we see a face in the moon or a dragon in the clouds. It is the very same psychological impulse that connected the dots of distant suns, transforming them into the Great Bear and the Celestial Hunter. Yet the stunning consistency of these figures across the globe points to a force deeper than simple pattern recognition. The Swiss psychologist Carl Jung proposed that humanity shares a collective unconscious, a deep well of psychic inheritance populated by archetypes. These are not learned characters, but universal blueprints buried in every mind. The hero who slays the monster, the nurturing mother, the wise old man, the cunning trickster. These are the fundamental characters of the human psyche. And when our ancestors looked up at the brilliant, random scatter of the night, they instinctively projected these inner templates onto the celestial canvas. A cluster of stars became the Great Mother Bear, nurturing and protective. Another grouping became the heroic archer, forever drawing his bow. The sky became a vast Rorschach test, revealing the shared architecture of the human soul. This narrative impulse was also profoundly practical. Memorizing the precise positions of hundreds of individual stars for navigation or tracking the seasons is an immense cognitive task. But wrapping those same stars in a compelling story about a queen's vanity, A hero's rescue and a sea monster's wrath makes the data unforgettable. The constellation becomes a mnemonic device, a mental file folder where vital information about timing and direction is stored within an epic tale. The Greek saga of Perseus and Andromeda is not just a myth. It is a sophisticated memory palace stretched across the heavens, allowing a sailor on the open sea to recall the exact relationship between several key stellar landmarks. This reveals that myth-making is not a primitive failure to understand the world scientifically. It is a different but equally powerful way of knowing. It is a cognitive tool that uses emotion, character, and narrative to encode complex information about the environment, making it transmissible across generations. Science gives us the mechanics of the universe, but myth gave us a way to live within it, to find our place in a cosmos that was vast, mysterious, and deeply personal. This fundamental need to story our surroundings did not end with the stars. It extended to the very ground beneath our feet, where sacred geography turned the entire landscape into a reflection of the heavens above. Our everyday speech is a living museum of the celestial map. We casually describe a fortunate friend as being born under a lucky star, never realizing we are echoing the ancient belief that a person's destiny was written in the constellations at their birth. When we call a pair of lovers star-crossed, we are unknowingly invoking the precise astrological language of the Renaissance, suggesting their romance was doomed by the unfavorable alignment of the planets. This is not mere poetry. It is the fossilized vocabulary of an entire worldview preserved in the bedrock of our language. The very word disaster has a starkly literal origin. It comes directly from the Latin disastrum, which translates to bad star, a direct reference to the ancient conviction that calamities on Earth were caused by malignant planetary influences. Even the name for the flu, influenza, comes from the Italian word for influence, reflecting the widespread historical belief that epidemics were brought about by the baleful influence of the stars. These terms are linguistic artifacts, proving that our ancestors did not see the cosmos as a distant, impersonal void. They lived within a connected universe where the motions of the heavens directly governed health, fate, and fortune. The personalities of the planetary gods are still walking among us, disguised as common adjectives. A person with a generous, optimistic, and commanding nature is often described as jovial, a direct linguistic descendant of Jove, another name for the king of the gods, Jupiter. This word perfectly captures the celestial character of the planet Jupiter, which was seen as expansive, benevolent, and majestic. In contrast, someone with a quick, clever, and unpredictable temperament is called mercurial, named for the nimble messenger god Mercury. This, too, is a perfect match for the planet's behavior, as it darts back and forth in the sky, never staying in one place for long. Then there is the word venereal, which originally described anything related to the goddess Venus and her domain of love, beauty, and desire, before its meaning narrowed in modern medicine. We see this pattern repeated with the word saturnine, used to describe a gloomy, slow, or bitter person, mirroring the perceived character of the distant, sluggish planet Saturn. This was not a random assignment of names. It was a sophisticated system of correspondences, where the observed nature of a celestial body was encoded into the story of a god, and that story, in turn, was baked into our vocabulary. These words are more than just labels. They are compressed myths, each one a tiny capsule containing an entire ancient theory about how the universe works and how its forces shape human personality. This deep linguistic programming reveals that the old celestial code never really vanished. It simply went underground, continuing to influence the way we think and speak, and now it is re-emerging in the most modern of all our storytelling forms. The same archetypal patterns that guided ancient sailors are now projected onto cinema screens. Our most beloved modern epics are not really new at all. They are ancient celestial maps redrawn with laser swords and infinity stones. George Lucas did not just invent Star Wars, he consciously modeled it on the universal hero's journey, a pattern identified by mythologist Joseph Campbell. Luke Skywalker is a direct descendant of the mythic heroes Perseus and King Arthur. He begins as an ordinary farm boy, receives a call to adventure from a wise mentor, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and embarks on a perilous quest to rescue a princess and defeat a dark empire. His descent into the cave on Dagobah to confront the phantom of Darth Vader is a classic mythological ordeal, a journey into the underworld to face his deepest fears. The entire saga is a cosmic dance of light and dark, of a balanced force, echoing the eternal struggle between order and chaos that our ancestors saw in the movements of the sun and stars. This story structure resonates so powerfully because it is literally written into our cultural DNA, a narrative code as old as humanity itself. The Marvel Universe takes this a step further, creating a literal new pantheon for the modern age. Thor is not just a superhero, he is the actual Norse god of thunder, ripped from the pages of the prose Edda and placed in the middle of New York City. His struggles with his brother Loki over the throne of Asgard are a perfect retelling of the divine squabbles found in any mythology, from the Greeks to the Hindus. These are not simple comic book plots. They are the timeless stories of godlike beings whose personal conflicts have cosmic consequences, much like the planets whose movements were once thought to dictate the fate of kings and empires. The Avengers assemble like a council of gods, each with their own domain and power, battling over artifacts like the Infinity Stones, which function just like the powerful talismans and sacred objects sought by heroes in every ancient myth. This narrative framework is not confined to film. The best-selling video game Halo pits a cybernetic hero, Master Chief, against a cosmic threat called the Covenant in a struggle that determines the fate of all life, a sci-fi echo of the Norse Ragnarok. The massively popular book and television series The Wheel of Time is built entirely around a cosmology of cyclical ages, a concept straight from Hindu philosophy, where the world is destroyed and remade in an endless turning of the wheel. These stories work because they speak the old language of the cosmos. They understand that we are still searching for heroes to guide us, for cosmic battles between good and evil to give our struggles meaning, and for a sense that our personal journeys are part of a grand, universal design. We have not stopped creating myths, we have simply found new galaxies in which to set them. Our journey through these star-lit tales reveals a profound truth about the myths of antiquity. They were far more than simple fables told around a campfire. These stories formed a sophisticated, multidimensional code, a brilliant fusion of science and symbolism. They were a celestial map for navigating trackless seas, a precise calendar for planting and harvest, a philosophical framework for understanding humanity's place in the cosmos, and a sacred text written in the language of the stars, all woven into a single, enduring tapestry. Think of the Zodiac, its 12 figures acting as chapters in an annual storybook that turned with the seasons. Remember the polar myths, which transformed the unmoving North Star into a celestial nail or an imperishable realm, creating an unforgettable mental landmark for every explorer. Consider the planets, their erratic loops and retrograde motions explained through the dramatic squabbles and moods of capricious gods, and marvel at the grand architecture, from Stonehenge to the pyramids, where entire temples were engineered to capture a single sliver of solstice light, grounding cosmic cycles in solid stone. This legacy is not locked in the past. It lives and breathes in our very language, in words like disaster and jovial. It pulses in the deep archetypes of our collective psychology, and it plays out on cinema screens in the epic hero journeys of our modern blockbusters. Yet this priceless inheritance now faces a quiet threat. As we move into a future where the natural night sky is increasingly washed away by artificial light, remembering and actively sharing these ancient codes becomes a vital act of cultural preservation. They are a bridge to a time when everyone was an astronomer, when the heavens were not a distant void but a familiar, story-filled landscape that spoke directly to the human heart. So I encourage you to do this. Find a clear, dark night, go outside, let your eyes adjust and simply look up. See if you can trace the Great Bear circling the pole or find the 3 stars of Orion's belt. Can you feel the presence of the ancient stories? Which celestial myth from any culture we have explored resonates most deeply with you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you have enjoyed this journey into the mysteries of our past, be sure to subscribe.